Hi, everybody. Welcome to lesson 4 in Unit 2. I hope you found this unit really useful. There's been lots of information and there's been the opportunity to do some activities, which I think will have been really thought provoking for you. Today, I'm going to talk to you about some of the common reactions to trauma. We've spoken about what trauma is and how it affects us. And I want to talk about some of the common ways that we actually deal with it. Everybody responds differently to traumatic events. You have some reactions that are more positive than others, but importantly, everybody reacts differently. Remember, changes after trauma are normal. In fact, most people who directly experience traumatic events have severe problems in the immediate aftermath. Many people feel much better within about 3 months of the traumatic event, but some recover more slowly. And of course, this depends on the sort and the severity of the trauma. Some people continue for a long time to have debilitating symptoms because of trauma. The first step towards recovery is becoming aware of the actual changes that you've undergone since the trauma. Some of the most common problems that we actually see when people experience trauma are anxiety and fear. This is a really common one. Anxiety is common and a natural response to dangerous situations. For many people, it lasts long after the traumatic event. This happens when views of the world and a sense of safety have actually changed. You may become anxious when you remember the trauma, but sometimes anxiety comes more from something just out of the blue. Triggers or cues that can cause anxiety may include places or times, even smells and noises, or any sort of situation that reminds you of the trauma. In an earlier lesson, we talked about sirens. Hearing emergency services sirens is a really good example. As you begin to pay more attention to the times when you feel anxious, you can discover the triggers for your anxiety. In this way, you may learn that some of the out of the blue anxiety is actually triggered by things that remind you of the trauma. Another of the common problems that we actually see with people who have experienced trauma is the re experiencing of the trauma. People often re experience the traumatic event. So, for example, you may have unwanted thoughts about the trauma and find yourself unable to get rid of them. Some people have flashbacks. For example, they have those vivid images where they can feel like the trauma is actually occurring again. Nightmares are another example of this. And these symptoms occur because a traumatic experience is so shocking and so different from that everyday experience that you can't fit it into what you know about the world. In order, therefore, to actually understand what happened, your mind keeps bringing the memory back as if to better understand it, to better digest what actually happened. Another thing that we see is that there's an increase in vigilance. There's an increase in how cautious we are about the world. And this is a common response to trauma. This includes being on guard, jumpy or jittery or not really sure, that's shaky, nervous or on edge, those sorts of feelings, like you're easily startled or having trouble concentrating or sleeping. This continued vigilance can actually lead to impatience and being irritable, especially if you're not getting enough sleep. When we protect ourselves from real danger by actually freezing, fighting, or fleeing, we need to have a lot more energy than usual. So our bodies pump this extra adrenaline to actually get us the extra energy that we need. So it's tiring, it's physically exhausting being overly vigilant all the time. People who have experienced traumatic events may see the world filled with a danger. So their body actually is constantly reminded of the event and is constantly alert and ready to respond immediately to an attack. The problem is that this increased vigilance is actually useful in truly dangerous situations. We need this. This is a survival reflex. So if you're in a war zone or if you're being robbed, we want people to actually be scared and be vigilant around those things. But increased vigilance becomes harmful when it continues for a long time and when it continues in safe situations. Another thing that we see is avoidance. And avoidance is common when we're trying to manage PTSD symptoms. We talked about PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. We spoke about that in the past. The most common is avoiding situations that remind you of the trauma, such as where it happened. Often situations that are less directly related to the trauma are also involved. So, for instance, going out in the evening if the trauma occurred at night, or going to crowded places such as a grocery store, shopping mall, or movie theatre. Another common avoidance tactic is to try and push away painful thoughts and painful feelings, and this can lead to feelings of numbness and even emptiness, where you actually find it difficult to feel any emotions, even positive ones. Sometimes the painful thoughts or feelings may be so intense that your mind just blocks them out altogether and you can't remember events of the trauma. Many people who've experienced traumatic events feel angry. If you're not used to feeling angry, this may seem scary as well. Some people aren't naturally people who become angry. So when they do, this is actually quite scary. People sometimes turn to substances to even try and reduce their anger and their fear. Trauma can often lead to feelings of guilt and shame, and many people blame themselves for things they did or didn't do to survive. So, for example, some assault victims believe that they should have fought off an assailant and they blame themselves for the attack, whereas others who might have survived the event feel guilty that they hadn't been the one to die, or that they might feel guilty that they should have somehow prevented somebody from being harmed. Sometimes other people may blame you for the trauma. Feeling guilty about the trauma means that you're taking responsibility for what occurred. While doing this might actually make you feel more in control, it's usually one-sided and it's usually inaccurate and can lead to depression. Grief and depression are also really common reactions to trauma, and this can include feeling down, feeling sad, and even feeling hopeless. You may cry more often, and you may lose interest in the activities that you usually enjoy and the people that you usually enjoy to spend time with. You may stay home, you might isolate yourself from your family and friends, and you might feel that plans in the future just don't seem to matter anymore. These feelings can lead to thoughts of wishing that you were dead or doing things that might harm you or even kill you. Because the trauma has changed so much of how you see the world yourself, it makes sense to feel sad and grieve what you lost because of the traumatic experience. If you have these feelings and thoughts, it's very important to talk to somebody. And I really encourage you to actually do that now, whether it be a therapist or a friend or somebody that can actually help you handle those thoughts and experience and get you through this. Another thing that happens when we experience trauma is it directly changes our self-image and our view on the world. And this often becomes more negative after trauma. You may tell yourself, I hadn't been so weak, if I hadn't done this, this wouldn't have happened to me. And many people see themselves in a more negative light in general after the trauma. It's also really common to see others more negatively and to feel that you can't trust anybody anymore. If you used to think about the world as a safe place, this trauma will suddenly make you think that the world isn't a safe place. If you had previous bad experiences, the trauma may convince you that the world is indeed a dangerous place and others are not to be trusted. These negative thoughts often make people feel like they've changed completely from the trauma. Relationships with others can become really hard and really tense, and intimacy becomes more difficult as your trust in the world and your trust in other people actually decreases. Sexual relationships can also really suffer after traumatic experiences, and many people find it really difficult to be intimate again with and have sexual relationships again after trauma. This is especially true for those people who've been sexually assaulted, since in addition to the lack of trust, sex can actually be a reminder of the assault. Like I said before, many people use alcohol and other substances to actually deal with trauma. Often they do this as an attempt to self-medicate or to block out painful memories of the actual trauma. They block out thoughts and feelings related to the trauma. People with PTSD may have trouble sleeping, or they might have nightmares, and they may use alcohol and drugs to actually assist with this. While it might seem to work in the short term, chronic use of alcohol and drugs will slow down or prevent your recovery from PTSD. We know this. This is a proven fact. It doesn't help in the long term. Fortunately, there are treatments that actually can help, but drugs and alcohol are not it. Many of the reactions to trauma are actually connected with another. So, for example, a flashback may make you feel completely out of control and will therefore produce anxiety and fear, which then will result in using alcohol or drugs to sleep at night. Many people think that their reaction to trauma means that they're going crazy or losing it. These thoughts can make them even more anxious as you become aware of the changes you have gone through since the trauma, and as you process these experiences, the symptoms will become less and distressing you less, and you will gain control back over your life. So it is really important to acknowledge that trauma, like we've seen before, trauma changes who we are, it changes how we see the world, and it changes how we process information. But it's also really important for us to actually look at what things we can be doing to manage trauma in a proactive way. So PTSD, so post-traumatic stress disorder, I always have to remember to stop using acronyms, because I know that people can sometimes think, what is she talking about when she's talking about acronyms? But PTSD and other forms of traumatic stress can make life incredibly difficult. It can make it unpredictable, and intrusive thoughts and flashbacks can just show up at a moment's notice and without any warning, and they can really affect your ability to actually cope with your day-to-day life. Staying away from people, places, and situations that trigger these thoughts and memories can be appropriate and can be helpful at times. However, using avoidance as your only strategy is not something that will last forever. These symptoms can't be avoided all of the time. And trying to avoid these constantly may actually cause you to close off opportunities and create more anxiety and make you feel even more restrained by the traumatic experience. It may also be harmful to only have one method of actually coping, because it might not help you all the time. Rather, it's better to have a whole lot of tools that can actually work in your favor. I often talk about having tools in your toolbox of things that you can actually use at any time and in the right situation to help you cope with the situation that you're in. So the first one I'm going to talk about is what I call using the window of tolerance. The window of tolerance concept is a way to identify and talk about your current mental state. Being inside your window means that you're doing okay and that you can function effectively. When you're outside the window, it means you've been triggered and you're experiencing some sort of traumatic stress response. Initially, you might have a small window, which means that you have limited capacity to process and stabilize when presented with difficult information or the reminders of the traumatic event. You might be easily triggered with flashbacks, intrusive thoughts, high anxiety, emotional shutdown, and panic attacks. Your window expands as you've developed tools to stabilize your feelings, which increases your capacity to actually handle more difficult information, more difficult emotions, and physical stimuli and sensations. By handle, I actually mean that you can stay more in the present moment. You know where you are, you know who you're with, what date it is, and what time it is, and you're not overwhelmed by this. You're present in the moment and you can think and feel at the same time. You're not avoiding this. Having some awareness of both the positive and the negative states can help you identify practice tools necessary to stay in the moment. So it's this window of tolerance that we actually want to use different strategies to increase our capacity to stay within. This might be your window of tolerance at the moment, and you use one tool to actually keep you safe. We want to introduce more tools to actually allow you to cope better when you're confronted with negative stimuli. So one of the things that we always start with is breathing. Breathe, and you think it would be really simple. You think it would be something that is pretty much common sense, because let's face it, if we don't breathe, then nothing's going to work. But breathing slowly and deeply is actually really important. So it's free, it's portable, you can use it anytime, anywhere. You can drive in the car, you don't have to shut your eyes, all those things. This is something you can use all the time. You need to inhale through your nose and exhale for longer than you inhale, either through your nose or through your lips, it doesn't matter. So a suggested rhythm is 4 counts in, hold for 2, and 6 counts out, or 8 counts, even better. By doing this, you're actually activating the part of your nervous system that helps your body calm itself. This can help you even think clearly and return to the present moment. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to breathe in for 4, I'm going to hold for 2, and then I'm going to breathe out for 6. Now, obviously, I can't do that and talk, so I'm just going to use my fingers so you'll see. Ready? Now, I'm actually going to talk you through it. You're going to breathe in for 4, hold for 2, and then out for 6. Ready? You can close your eyes. That will help. It will help you concentrate. Don't try and clear your thoughts. Just try and concentrate on the breathing. Ready? And we'll begin. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4. Hold, 2. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't try and get yourself caught up on making sure that you're doing it right. The concept is to just be making sure that you're actually concentrating on that breathing. And I promise you that whether you're in the supermarket line, whether you're in the car with the kids, but don't shut your eyes, all those sorts of situations, this is a technique which you can use, which will actually reduce your heart rate and help you cope with the situation better. Another thing that's really important to use and to put in your toolkit as a tool is that validating your experience. What you have experienced in your trauma is real and it's hurtful. Having the name or context of the traumatic stress or PTSD helps you know that it's not your fault. There's nothing wrong with you. What you're going through is actually a normal response to an abnormal experience. It's important to remind yourself of this and just let yourself know and remind yourself that although there's challenging symptoms, because self-validation is important, it's important for you to know that this is normal and this is an okay reaction to what happened to you. The other thing that we want to have a think about is really focusing on those 5 senses. So start with 5 different things that you see. The trees outside your window. 5 things, some things that you hear. So for example, the buzzing of the air conditioning. A sense of your skin. So I've got tags on my shirt which are driving me a bit nuts. Taste, the lingering taste of coffee on your breath, and smell, so perfume or flowers, something like that. Then notice 4 of each, then 3 of each, and so on. Be specific. Be specific about these items, as you can make them important by really concentrating on the external factors to get them out of your head and to start thinking about those instead of focusing on the experience. Pay attention to things like shape, scent, texture, and color. And you'll probably be back at the present moment before you even realize it. So I want you to take a few minutes and I want you to name 5 things for each of the senses that you are experiencing at the moment. What is it that you can see? What is it that you can hear? What can you feel with your skin? What can you taste? And what can you smell? I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to have a think about that. So, when I think about 5 things that I can see around me at the moment, I can see out the window and I can see lots of the city lights. I can see photos of my family. I can see some certificates in the office, some things that we've achieved as a family, and I can see right in front of me some plans and some things that we've got organised for holidays. Some of the things that I can hear TV in another room. I can hear the noise from the city outside. I can hear the dog shuffling around and moving around. And I actually heard the doorbell at some stage as well. Some of the things that I can actually feel the heater on because it was getting cold in here. I can feel the warmth of the clothes that I've got on, and I can feel the softness of those clothes as well. Some of the things that I can taste, I feel I can still taste dinner. I had homemade pizza for tea. I can taste still coffee that I had earlier today and some ice cream. And some of the things that I can smell, I can actually smell still the dinner that we had last night, and I can smell the fresh air that's actually coming in from outside as well. So these are all things that actually help me come back to the present, to where I am, and to notice what's happening with me at the moment, rather than things that have happened previously. Another great thing to do is to think positively for 12 seconds. So bring to mind something that's positive, something like a beautiful flower or a sunset. It doesn't have to be huge, it just has to be something that's positive. Somebody's face, a compliment from a friend or a colleague, and really focus on it for 12 seconds. Breathe and notice its impact on your body and emotions. According to the neuropsychologist Dr. Rick Hanson, it only takes 12 seconds for the creation of a new neuron connection. These positive experiences have the ability to replace stress, fear-based thinking and coping. So let's have a think about it. If you think of your child or your grandchildren or somebody that you're really fond of, you can't help but smile when you do that. That really changes that perspective and what you're thinking of. Another thing is to use a gravity or weighted blanket. A symptom of PTSD is sleep disturbance, which sometimes includes insomnia, nightmares, flashbacks, and really high anxiety. Not getting enough of the type of sleep you need can cause you to have problems concentrating, leading to difficulties at work and at school. It can lead to being irritable, being negative, and negatively impact on your ability to actually hold and maintain relationships. There's actually research that shows that using a weighted blanket, which stimulates being held safely and being hugged tight, can actually assist in reducing anxiety or insomnia. So have a think about a weighted blanket. And I know that they're actually readily available now at Kmart and those sorts of places as well. Another really good thing, and kill me for the science and the high price tag of this one, not, but laughing. Research has actually told us that laughter really is good medicine, and it is now being used more commonly as a therapeutic method. It's proven to reduce stress by releasing specific hormones that boost your immune system and rewire your brain. So have a go, watch a funny movie, have a really good laugh when you're feeling stressed or when you're feeling anxious. Or spend time with a friend or a loved one who really makes you laugh. What you need to remember is that you have a right to feel calm and in the present moment. Practicing these tools when you're not in time of anxiety is a really good first step to managing your traumatic stress and getting on the road to a really good recovery. I look forward to moving on to the next unit with you guys. I'm going to get you again to take a few days. This has been a really heavy unit. So I'm going to get you to take a few days to have a think about and to really process all of the things that we've spoken about and process those activities that you did, which I know will have been a bit hard hitting as well. See you later.